In 1968, Forest Park Review writer Claude A. Walker observed that Forest Park was a hub of fun and games. It was the site of a world-class amusement park, and heading into the 20th century, the pastime of the town, then known as Harlem, was also the Harlem Race Track. Its other name was the Harlem Jockey Club, and Walker described it, decades after it closed, as a place brimming with, quote, the usual riffraff that used to follow the racetracks. The town had its share of controversy, especially with an amusement park that clashed with local churches and had an ongoing dispute over alcohol and gambling licenses. And the Harlem Race Track was a place Walker said, quote, wasn't the most wholesome environment for children and mothers. He was right. From the outset, the racetrack was protested by churches across the area. But that didn't stop blind John Condon. Condon made his fortune in coal, was an art collector, and had an estate valued in 1921, several years after his death, at $1.5 million, equivalent to over $26 million today. He operated several racetracks throughout the United States and led a life of gambling, a career that walked the tightrope of legitimacy. The racetrack opened at modern-day streets Hannah and Roosevelt Road on an 80-acre property in 1894, which was leased to Condon. In 4 years, it became such a success that complaints were filed against the club for the thousands of congregants who arrived every day to watch the ponies. By the turn of the century, the prospects of the racetrack waned. Condon, from the seat of his Michigan Avenue mansion, decided to announce his retirement in the spring of 1899 due to his failing health and eyesight, which bestowed him the apt nickname. He chose not to renew his lease. But what Condon's thought process is lost in history, because months after he announced his retirement, he decided to purchase the racetrack outright. He then began to build a golf course on the oval inside of the racetrack that featured several holes and bunkers. By 1901, a newspaper article detailed his full plan to expand the golf course with a clubhouse, and the uncanny foresight of Condon to offer more entertainment than just horse racing paid off. In 1905, the village banned horse racing and gambling, so the track pivoted to automobile racing, even hosting a race with the famed Louis Chevrolet. Races included sprints and 24-hour endurance competitions. It was a dangerous sport with multiple accidents recorded having taken place at the track towards the end of the decade. But tragedy struck the racetrack on Thanksgiving Day 1910 when a major fire closed it for good. 400 frame stables were destroyed, reportedly costing anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 worth of damages. But Condon had his heart set on the idea of repurposing the land. However, he died in 1915, but his intention culminated in the next chapter. With 18 holes, men and women were allowed to play at the Harlem Golf Course. This may have been because of a decision by management, John's son Jack Condon, a noted advocate for equal play. The flat course was anything but fair, with sand traps, ponds, and a notorious 7th hole, featuring a tree in the middle of the fairway. The golf course fared a bit more sophisticated than the gambling-fueled racetrack. It had a white-painted clubhouse that offered notably delicious roast beef sandwiches. The course sported 2 unlikely stories to note. John Gibson was an impoverished boy raised by his mother and supported himself by caddying on the course until he could play the sport. He earned accolades as Illinois Golf Pro of the Year in 1966 and 1971 and went on to coach at the University of Arizona. He never won a major tournament, but he placed second to Sam Snead in the Miami Open. And then there was the statue of Cleopatra. As the local legend went, Condon commissioned the statue at the World's Fair and used the statue as a grave marker for his favorite horse named Cleopatra. Condon saw to it that it was never moved. The land of the golf course was eventually sold, and crews built a construction road through the property, pulled the grass, and chopped down the 7th hole tree, and the site was later chosen for a naval ordnance base that aided the country's war effort during World War II. But the statue of Cleopatra weathered away and stayed on the land until the post office purchased the area. It was moved to a Cicero dump, where it sat until the town's fire inspector, Harold Adams, decided to fix it up with his local Boy Scout troop by washing it and layering it with latex paint. In the 1980s, Adams called out to local historical societies, including Forest Park, to relocate the beautiful work of art. Forest Park, led by Dr. Frank Orland, decided to move the statue to a storage area in the newly built Forest Park Mall, where the racetrack once stood. The attempted restoration reportedly made the statue unfit for public viewing, and a fund was started by the Historical Society of Forest Park to clean her up. Dr. Orland's correspondence with the Metropolitan Museum of Art and historian Marilyn Richardson resulted in the discovery of the statue's creator, Edmonia Lewis, the first notable international sculptor of African American and Native American descent. It was unveiled at the 1876 Philadelphia Centennial Exposition and was displayed in Chicago in 1878. It somehow ended up in a Clark Street saloon in Chicago. At this point, some of the prevailing legend becomes true. Condon bought the statue in 1892 and used it to mark the grave of his favorite horse. When he sold the land, he asked that the statue not be removed. Easy to say for a 2-ton piece of marble. The Historical Society eventually donated the statue to the Smithsonian's National Museum of American Art in 1994. It now sits in the Smithsonian American Art Museum. Multiple local historians and authors have written about Lewis, and Google honored her with a doodle on its front page in 2017. The U.S. Postal Service also has her featured on a Forever stamp in their Black Heritage series from 2022. And one of her best pieces resided on that racetrack and golf course. Despite all the gambling, riffraff, car crashes, and mulligans that came before, the plot of land at Hannah and Roosevelt serves as a reminder of the diverse and unexpected history that lies beneath our feet.